Thank you. I appreciate everybody's time this morning. I always consider what you're doing on these calls as an investment. So I recognize it's time away from your family, it's time away from your friends, it's time away from your clients. So I do appreciate that. Glenn, I want to make sure everybody can see the screen, see my slide.
Yep, you're good. American
Okay,
National
thank you.
Credit. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So, of course, today's a coaching call. Glenn and I met a few weeks ago, and I was just sharing with him one of our newest products. We'll look at that a little bit later in the presentation here today. It's called Smart Start Accumulator Series. And I'll take the time to make sure you kind of understand why it's called a series. You know, there's a couple of ways you can choose to go into the product, and then that gives you a particular product name, but we'll touch on that. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Strategy Index 7 again today. Won't spend a lot of time on it, but I want to revisit it after we presented this product earlier in the year in Fort Wayne. I think there were nearly 60 plus applications that came in following in the following 30, 60 days, which was incredible. And so I want to make sure that you're aware of that as well. But really, to kind of start things off, just to make sure if you're not familiar with American National, we are a company that's been around since 1905, so 120 years. We are A-rated with AM Best, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch. We are owned by a company called Brookfield Wealth Solutions, just to make sure everybody's, I'm being transparent about that. So they acquired us in 2022. And they have really put the emphasis and focus for us on the annuity side. So if you worked with us in the past, you may be aware that we have exited the life insurance sales side of the business, and we're going to continue to focus on some key areas. I have other folks in our company who focus on property and casualty. They're going to focus on farmers and ranchers and such. But in my world, and as I support Glenn and the team at Advocate, we're going to focus on annuities. You'll see here, just in 2024, these things kind of are a lag, so there isn't necessarily 2025 awards yet, but you'll see everywhere from Barron's to Forbes, Newsweek, and AM Best. We've been recognized as one of the best insurance companies in America. I won't spend a lot of time on each of those, but we are very proud to be recognized by multiple outlets as to what we're doing to be best in class. When I met with Glenn, and Glenn, forgive me, I don't recall how familiar you were with this concept before I shared it, but I do want to, when Glenn and I talked about it, he's like, yeah, we definitely want to do this on an upcoming coaching call. We want to make sure everybody is familiar with this idea of refinancing your retirement. And the idea itself kind of is, what I want to help you understand is, we are obviously in a unique economic climate today with high interest rates. And for you and for your clients, that presents a great opportunity to review the existing policies they may own, especially if those annuities were purchased before 2021 for different reasons. But we definitely know now the interest rates are much higher than they were then. We know that the products have greatly improved. Products that were bought probably before 2021, if they were indexed, have had their caps or their participation rates reduced. And so what we're trying to do is help agents understand there is an opportunity today to talk to your clients about existing annuities they own to determine whether or not they're truly underperforming. Are they paying expenses? Have they been getting 1-2% returns? Recently, have they had years where they've gotten zeros when the S&P 500 has been up? And so, again, it's a very unique time for us to review these. I don't know how long we'll continue to have high interest rates, but while we do, there is this opportunity. So what is refinancing your retirement? I like to draw the comparison to several years ago when the interest rate environment was still low. And I would do by show of hands, but I can't see. Maybe I'll take a look here if I can get. Yeah, not everybody's got their camera up. But listen, people several years ago when the interest rates were low were doing what? They were refinancing their mortgages, right? They were doing so because long term, they were going to save a significant amount of money. When they refinanced their mortgage, uh, we could acknowledge that there would have been fees associated with doing so. And even though there were fees, which I equate to charges in an annuity, they still chose to do it because of the long-term benefit, right? And if we talk to clients and we open up the conversation, so we've asked them, they've got an annuity, it's maybe a little bit older. We would like to look at it and see how it's performing. We'd like to get their feedback on how they feel it's performed, right? But we also want to ask them, when the interest rates were low, did you refinance your mortgage? And if you did, just simply ask, well, why did you do it? Well, they'll talk about the long-term savings. Was there expenses that you incurred? Was there a fee? Yes, okay. So we kind of acknowledge these things up front. But as we talk to them about why we'd like to look at the annuity, we talk about where the interest rate environment's at. We talk about the newer products. The participation rates are much higher. The caps are higher today than they would have been. And I don't believe there are many insurance companies who have begun to lower their caps that will probably likely raise them, especially if interest rates do start to drop. So what we'd like to do is talk to your client about the long-term benefits of reviewing their annuity and potentially getting into a better product, taking advantage of some of the higher guaranteed rates or the higher caps that are available today with these new products. In fact, the new products today have premium enhancements or first-year bonuses that could actually help improve their long-term retirement position by growing their assets day one and then compounding that over the coming years. And so we'll look at a couple products today that do have the opportunity for premium enhancements. That's how we refer to them. Many people refer to them as bonuses. Today, you'll probably have me use that language back and forth just to make sure that I'm, speaking to what they truly are. I mean, they are bonuses, but we are referring to them as premium enhancements. But I share all that to say if you have a client who has an underperforming annuity and there is an opportunity to reallocate or I'm sorry, reposition their asset into a new product, it could come with charges. The existing product may still have charges on that. And again, what we want to talk to your client about is the long-term benefit or even the immediate benefit day one. Some of these bonuses can overcome those charges day one and so yes, you got a fee over here. But when you move day one over here, your dollar is X. It's higher because of the bonus. And then your dollars now are working at what would be a higher cap rate or a higher participation rate. And so hopefully that kind of explains what this refinancing your retirement concept is. The unique opportunity that we have today to approach your clients, really to do an annuity review, but to help guide you through that conversation by drawing that analogy to what may have been a refinancing of their mortgage here recently for them. Okay, if that makes sense. Could I pause just to ask if there's any questions? Glenn, we didn't talk about it. I don't know how interactive typically this is, but I'm certainly more than happy to pause and answer questions before I begin to look at some of the products.
Yeah, the reason I really like this concept, because we talk about yearly reviews, most annuities have the opportunity to change indexes once a year. And if you're not comfortable with that conversation and that review, you want to take some of the training, get with me or Tim so we can, maybe look before you do your review with your client. And then when you talk about this refinancing strategy, it could make a lot of sense for the client and thousands of dollars. And the reality is, if you don't do it, there may be another broker that comes behind you and does it, because these premium enhancement bonuses are incredible. And he's going to talk about a product with a 14% bonus and no fee. That's just selling like crazy. And the reality is, these folks really want to have the conversation, but they don't want to feel dumb. So you want to make sure you explain it in a way that they can understand it. And I think what Tim just walked through on the, refinancing, that's going to happen again. If you remember 10 years ago, that's exactly what happened. The housing market refinanced, and then all of a sudden the rates spiked up. And that may happen again as Trump tries to beat down the rates here in the future. But it's a really interesting concept. It's just really giving you a chance to review. You review their healthcare every year. Why wouldn't you renew and refocus the retirement as well?
Yeah, it's another asset, right, that they have. We talk about some of people's largest assets, and the home comes to mind. And so when you think about the home and what it costs to purchase a home over a 30-year or 15-year period is significantly more than what they paid, right? But it's because of the interest rates and such. And so when an opportunity comes along, so just in contrast, right? When interest rates were low, they refinanced their mortgage. In contrast, with the interest rates being high, we should look at refinancing potentially some of their retirement assets. And in this case, annuities that may be underperforming. Again, I'm not saying we go out and we replace all the annuities just because. We are truly looking for the opportunity to improve their position. And so that's where this stems from. Thank you, Glenn. So I'll go back and kind of start to share with you one of the products we introduced earlier this year and did really well with the advocate base. It's called the Strategy Index 7. It is a flexible fixed deferred indexed annuity. And here, what we like to think about is because it's flexible, it actually provides the ability for contribution of additional funds. Where maybe they can manage some of their savings. They can either be sweeping some in, maybe they opened it up as an IRA, and this is where they're putting their IRA contributions. And obviously, because it's flexible, it will allow them to, in fact, increase their annuity value over time with those additional premiums. Index annuities are, annuities that can provide higher returns based on the performance of specific financial indexes, such as the S&P 500. We will have that as an option inside here, among others. I won't probably spend too much time today specifically getting into the indexes themselves, but we will see what the current rates are, so you can see how those what your options may be. And then, of course, fixed deferred just refers to the way the annuity accumulates value over time. In a fixed deferred annuity, the growth of the annuity's value is based on the fixed interest rate that's predetermined and guaranteed, or the value that these indexes brings back. And then the growth is deferred, meaning it occurs over a specific period of time. In this case, this product has a 7-year chassis or a 7-year contingent deferred sales charge period. It is not a rolling surrender charge, so as they add additional premiums, it does not lengthen the sales charge in this product. In fact, here, this next slide does a really nice job of highlighting what the key features are for this Strategy Index 7. So, yes, it is flexible. They can make premium contributions, but better than that, for you as the agent, the commissions pay through year 7 as well. They do. It does have a declining rate, but certainly the ability to have contributions added to an existing policy and still receive commissions is very attractive. Now, this product does have a premium enhancement or a first year bonus of 11%. It's actually a first year, second year, and a third year bonus of 11%. So all premiums contributed to this policy in the first 3 years will receive an 11% bonus on that premium contribution. Okay. Um, and with that, again, just keep in mind, it does not roll out an additional 7-year surrender charge in year 2 or year 3. Once the 7 years have come and gone, the surrender charge in this policy is 0. Year 8, they could choose to walk away, even though maybe in year 3 they just received an additional 11% premium enhancement. These enhancements
And hey, Tim, I wanted to remind everybody this product is perfect for a Roth. I'm getting a couple text, and feel free to throw some messages in the chat. This is perfect for a Roth because people generally, while they're working, especially in their late 50s, they're kind of waking up and realizing that, oh, I don't have any tax-free money growing. And this is a perfect account for somebody to put in regular intervals, $100 a month, $1,000 a year, up to their amount, 7 or 8,000 a year that they can put in. And one of the new laws is they're allowed to put $10,000 in if you're 60 to 63 into a Roth. So this might be a really good opportunity for you to sell this Flex product. It's just, to me, it's the best product out there.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. And a few other bullet points here that help really kind of make this a really strong product. These premium enhancements are vested immediately for surrender or upon death, right? So why would I say surrender? Well, somebody may have to come in and liquidate this, but then they've got charges and fees against it. But it is immediately vested. That premium enhancement would be part of that total calculation. Death, well, this is a product that we don't have chargebacks on death ever. So if someone were to get this product, get the enhancement, and then unfortunately pass away in the first year, there would not be a commission chargeback, nor would we claw back that the enhancement itself. The premium enhancement is guaranteed at issue, not to change. So the 11% that they would lock in today would be the 11% they would receive in years 2 and 3 as well. So even if or interest rates, Trump administration gets interest rates pushed back down, and future versions of this product are maybe only offering 9 or 9.5%. If your client buys it today and locks in at the 11%, that 11% is honored for those first 3 years. 10% partial withdrawals available in first year. This includes the premium enhancement, right? So you put 100,000 in, now you've got 110, and they need to go and take a withdrawal. 10% is now $11,000 they could take out in the first year. That makes sense. And then, as I mentioned before, we do have some top-rated indexes in here, such as the S&P 500. There's a volatility control, 5% with the S&P Mark 5, and then a NASDAQ 100 option as well. I do want to just go to this next slide here, as it kind of outlines who's eligible, minimums and such. We are issuing this through age 80. Both the owner and the annuitant would have to be 80 or younger. We do use age last, so as long as they've not turned 81 before the policy issues, we're in good shape. There is a $5,000 minimum on the qualified side, and then a $10,000 minimum on the non-qualified side. The thing I always like to point out, and I don't pretend that these aren't out there, because I'm asked a few times a week to talk about exceptions above $3 million. There are individuals out there who've done quite well for themselves. They have money either on the sidelines, or they have it in other policies, other existing annuities that may be more than $3 million. It would be an incredible sale. But we do make exceptions above 3 million, but it is an exception. But up to 3 million, you don't even have to ask. As long as that's 3 million for the household, we'll go up to that without any question. And there's no reduction in compensation if you happen to come across a large case. Even if we make the exception, there's no reduction in compensation for you. So just keep that in mind. They are out there. You may come into it. First thing you want to do after you've called your spouse and gotten excited is you want to call Glen. Okay. The interest crediting strategies, these are what they are. You got the Mark 5, you got a S&P 500 uncap, you got S&P value cap, the NASDAQ 100, and declared rate. Don't want to overcomplicate those, but we do have information on those indices, PDFs or booklets that you can access that will make you more comfortable with how those work, how they might reposition themselves with market fluctuations. And then here is what those current rates are. So we know we get the 11% premium enhancement on this product. And then the uncapped participation rate is 30% on the S&P 500. So if the S&P 500, for example, in a year does 5%, you're going to get 30% of that 5. So 1.5% would be what would be credited. If the S&P comes back at 30%, at 30% participation rate, you would get 9% is how that would work. There is the value cap, participation rate 6.5. I'm sorry, participation cap. So cap, right? So that's the high end, but they could certainly earn up to 6.15. And then there's always a declared rate, which is currently at 3% in that product. These are rates as of August 1st here, so just last Friday. And lastly, just on this particular product, because it is worth noting, there are waiver of surrender charges. So if your client does happen to suffer a disability, a terminal illness, or becomes confined and they need to access funds from this policy, in an unfortunate situation, if they meet certain criteria, you'd work with our claims team to go through this process. we would waive the charges and any associated MBA to allow them to be able to access their funds. So do keep that in mind. The next product we're going to look at is called the Smart Start Accumulator Series. This product just launched in July, and in that short time, we've already sold over $32 million in sales. We have, and that comes from, it was more than 200 applications. So it launched, and people have already begun to sell it, and they're selling it in a meaningful way. This is what it is, a single premium fixed indexed annuity, but it has several unique features that are really kind of innovative in the marketplace. One of the things we have done is we've got bonuses associated to this. We've got a what they call a best entry window. So I'll talk to you what that is and how that works. Give you an example. And what that's meant to do is overcome the objection of timing, this best entry window. We also have some folks that when they go to purchase an index annuity, or even some agents who just aren't comfortable knowing what allocation mix to use, this product is leveraging Nobel Prize winning research to deliver predetermined allocation mixes that are going to be classified as conservative, a moderate, or an aggressive option. But yet we're not going to take and put somebody in just those three. If they want, they could choose to do a customize. So if you wanted to work with them that way, there could be advantages to doing a custom approach. But we believe, and what we've seen so far, by far and away, are people taking advantage of the allocation models. And I'll share with you, Glenn, you and I haven't talked about this, but I've been kind of taken back by what we've seen. Almost 90% of the time, people are taking the aggressive model. I was really kind of surprised by that. I thought people might be looking at the moderate, but they've been taking the aggressive model.
And that's what
So,
I've seen too, Tim, as well. You're exactly right.
well, they're in an indexed annuity, right? They've got some downside protection, and so perhaps that's where that approach is coming from. But more than 90% thus far has been to the aggressive. So here's a slide. This kind of gets into what the standout features are with this product. Again, it's called the Smart Start Accumulator Series. And ultimately, when a client buys this, they're either going to be in the Smart Start Accumulator or what's going to be the Smart Start Accumulator Plus. Now, the Smart Start Accumulator Plus is an indication, the word plus is the indication that they've gone ahead and taken a premium bonus of either 14 or 20%. Yes, 20%. Now, the 20%, as we'll talk about in another slide or two, does carry a fee, okay? And there's a fee that's assessed against the annual contract value. This is not unlike other products in the market today that have 14 and 20% bonuses. The 14% bonuses on those products do not carry a fee. The 20s do. They're typically around 1%. Ours, as you'll see, is 95 basis points. But the idea that a product is willing to produce a 14 or 20% bonus is really unique over just the last few years. I think they were mostly introduced because people who are in existing underperforming annuities have charges. And what we want to be able to do is help them reposition from an underperforming policy into a new, more innovative policy with the ability to take advantage of higher rates. But in order to do that from a suitability perspective, we've got to overcome those charges. And so companies began introducing these meaningfully large 14, 20% bonuses that are available. The other thing that I talked about was that best entry window. Again, buy low, maximize gains, and eliminate market timing concerns over the first 90 days in that first year. And I'll walk you through an example of how that works. Really, really innovative. We are one of the first products in the market to be leveraging this best entry approach. We will not be the last. I think this is probably going to become one of the most popular features we see in new products as they begin to roll out. Multi-index portfolio allocations, that's what I mentioned, the Nobel Prize winning approach with a conservative, a moderate, and an aggressive option. Just highlighting this product, this goes to age 85. So we looked at that strategy index 7 going out to age 80. This does go out to age 85. Like any of our deferred products, we do not allow joint annuitants, so be mindful of that. We will allow joint owners, but not joint annuitants. Again, this is single, not flexible like the strategy index. Similar minimums. 10 on the non-qualified side, 5 on the qualified. Um, and the index opportunities, there's a declared rate. We've got a point-to-point capped. We got point-to-point uncapped. When they're uncapped, they have participation rates. Okay. We talk about who is the ideal client. We would like to think that they've got a 10 to 15-year time horizon. This is a 10-year contingent deferred sales charge product, so it's a 10-year product. And that is, again, different than that strategy index product, which was 7. This is 10. And they're looking for growth potential. They don't want to get caught up in, how their allocation mix is performing. They're not going to want to sit and try to figure out what, am I in the best optimal allocation mix, or should I be adjusting another 25% of my mix to this particular index? We want to make this effortless for those clients. And then obviously, we're trying to bring this product to market to create long-term success for your client. They would have that same goal. So I mentioned the 2 bonuses, the 14 and the 20. I mentioned that the 14% does not have a fee, and then the 20 does carry a fee against the annual account value of 95 basis points. There's a third option, which is not to take a bonus. Maybe they don't have charges in their existing product, and they don't need to take a bonus. And I'll show you why someone may want to do that when we get to the rate slides. But just to speak to it here, if you don't take a bonus, then your participation rates and your caps will be higher. Okay. So, and this is the Smart Start Accumulator product. You did not take a bonus, so it's not the plus. So there are 3 options when it comes to the premium enhancement. Opt out and don't take anything, or take the 14% with no fee, or take the 20% with the 95 basis point fee. Okay. The indexes in this product were intentionally selected to minimize correlation. And when I say that, what we're trying to say is, if you take an allocation mix, some of these mixes might have several of these indexes together. And what we want to do is we don't want to necessarily have them, we want to have them as well diversified within this index portfolio as possible. So we've intentionally selected these indexes to minimize that correlation or that overlap of their sub accounts and who they're investing in. I say sub accounts, but the positions that they're investing in. We're trying to minimize that overlap to give them better diversification. So what do we have here? We do have an S&P 500. This is going to be the only one that's working off of a cap perspective. The others will be uncapped with participation rates, but it is the traditional S&P 500. The Invesco QQQ is a new proprietary index to the marketplace. It is proprietary to us, as is the Morningstar Global Wide Moat. And the Invesco QQQ is really should be thought of as a NASDAQ 100 exposure. And it is, if you are watching stocks and you're watching various things in the market, you may have heard of the QQQ ETF. It's become quite popular because of how well the NASDAQ 100 has done with some of the tech companies. And this has been it's been created to kind of follow along, the Invesco QQQ ETF with its investment approach. It is a 12% volatility target. You'll notice there's a 12% volatility target there, a 7% with the global wide moat, a 5% with the Mark V, and a 15% with the S&P Dynamic Intraday. And so what we've done is we've tried to create even diversity within the volatility controls with this particular product. To speak to the global wide moat, when you hear the word moat, it is kind of what you envision. It is this idea of a body of water, perhaps around a castle. But when they did that in the old days, they had a moat to protect the castle. Businesses can have moats as well that protect their business. And what could that be? It could be proprietary intelligence. It could be a trademark. It could be the patents that have been filed. But what Morningstar is doing is they're approaching international companies. Today the mix is probably 70% U.S., 30% international, and they're looking for businesses that have a unique protection against competition for a period of 15 to 20 years. They either have been established for a long time and already have a strong competitive advantage over any of their new competitors, or they've got these patents and things that have been filed to give them, lead time over their competition. This was a very popular investing strategy by Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger over at Berkshire Hathaway. And they kind of invented this idea of a moat from an investment perspective. And so Morningstar has picked that up, adopted it, and now is using it to create this index. So I won't spend a lot of time here. Again, we do have a booklet on our indices that will give you more insight and talking points if you wanted to be not more knowledgeable to go through those with your clients. Do you have to be? Probably with this product, you don't, because we have these predetermined allocation mixes, and I'll talk to you about what that means effectively. Again, if you are familiar with investing, you'll know the term modern portfolio theory. And this idea of modern portfolio theory, when it was put together, it actually went on to win the Nobel Prize. And it's designed to optimize. What they do is they run these, they call them Monte Carlo scenarios. They run thousands of scenarios to predetermine what is the best and the most optimal allocation mix based on this historic performance, right? And what we've done is we've taken and we've leveraged that to put together a conservative, as you see here, a conservative column, a moderate, and an aggressive mix using these indexes and perhaps even the declared rate. So we've run thousands of these Monte Carlo scenarios in the background, leveraging the modern portfolio theory to know that the most optimal conservative outcome actually turned out to be 20% declared, 20% dynamic intraday, 20% to the Mark V, 20% to the QQQ, and 20% to the global wide moat, right? Just the same. On the aggressive side, we ran and we determined that 30% of the dynamic intraday, 40% to the QQQ, and 30% to the global wide moat was the most optimal aggressive mix. And so we've put these together already to take that burden off the agent. What you really want to do, and Glenn, sounds like you've already kind of seen this yourself, you just kind of want to have a conversation with the client. This is an index annuity. It does have, some downside protection. And so maybe people are willing to be more aggressive. Clearly, that seems to be what the trend is. But, maybe you step back and somebody doesn't want to be aggressive. Maybe they rather have more of a moderate approach to this investment, this asset. And you can just simply select the predetermined moderate allocation mix, right? So one of the first things we got to do is determine whether or not we're going to take a bonus, right? Opt out, take the 14%, or take the 20% with the fee. The next thing you're ultimately going to end up doing is determining whether or not you want to do a allocation mix or do a customized approach. You could choose to come in here and let's say you want to do 100% to the S&P 500 index. Well, that would be a customized approach over here with a fee. Now, today we don't have a fee associated with that, but potentially in the future we disclose that there could be a fee if you want to do a customized approach. Today, the conservative, moderate, and aggressive allocation mixes does not carry a fee. Glenn, are you?
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to remind everybody that this is ideal, especially the aggressive for younger people. We're getting a lot of people that have come to our office that are in their late 30s, 40s that have a 401k that maybe from a previous job that they've let sit around and they don't know what to do with it. And this is a great strategy because it's 10 years. They can't take the money anyways, and you can be a little more aggressive, like Tim said. And if they've got a Roth account, that's even better because it's going to grow tax-free. But this is great for a lot of people that are have a floating 401k, Roth, money out there that they want to put in. And we're just seeing a lot of activity with this, so we really want to make sure that you're letting your folks know about the opportunity.
Yeah. And what I want to do now is kind of shift back to one of those other unique features this product has, which is the best entry window. So again, we got 5 indexes here that can make up a mix, or you could use to do your own customized approach, and we have a declared rate. But when it comes to these indexes, one of the things that makes this product entirely unique is that we have this best entry window. Each of the indexes, regardless of the allocation mix you might select, each index will have its own best entry approach. Now, what do I mean by that? When you look at this example here, in that first year and first year only, in that first 90 days, we're going to we're going to take the start date. In this example, the start date was June 1st of 2025. What was the beginning index value? 4101. A year later, in that 1 year point to point strategy, the end term index value was 4221. That's a gross return of 2.92%, right? So if anybody bought any other product today on June 1st, in this hypothetical scenario, and that's where the index values were and where they finished, depending upon whether or not it was a participation or a cap, this is a cap, they would get, in the cap situation, the 2.92. If it was participation, they would have got the percentage against the 2.92. In this scenario, this example, the starting value is 110,000, but after the 1 year point to point, they end up at 113.12. Now, what happened in that first 90 days when they bought it? It started at 4101. The market dropped by July to 36.61. Now, from July to the end of the year, they had to recover. And they did. It bounced up, came down, it moved kind of all over the place, right? And ultimately, it ended at net positive, but at 2.92%. In the situation of a best entry, we look at that first 90 days, we're going to find that lowest point, and we're going to reset your beginning index value to that number. So now, instead of starting at 4101, the segment date doesn't change. It's still June 1st, but we reset the value for June 1st from 4101 to this 3667. And again, in this hypothetical scenario, that 3666 then grows to 4221. We knew that already, producing a gross return of 15.12%. The cap's at 9, so we cap out at 9. And now the 110 after the first year is 118.9, almost 119,000. That's the power of what a best entry window can do. There's no added cost for this. It's a built-in feature. If they're invested in the aggressive and they're in 3 of those indexes, each of the 3 indexes will have their own best entry window. One index may achieve that in the next 2 weeks. Another may not see the lowest number for 2 months, right? But wherever that happens to be for that respective index, we will capture that lowest number, giving them the best starting point that they possibly could have had in the next 90 days to measure against where it finishes at the end of their 1 year segment.
And again, this is something very unique, and I don't know of any other company offering this. In a volatile year, this is a great option for people because the market is very volatile this year.
Yeah, we see it every day, right? Tariffs on, tariffs off. We see it with the, what's happening with the interest rate. What are we going to do? People are fearful of recessions. We've got a lot of aggressive dialogue between now Russia's former president and the United States. We've got aggressive dialogue happening. I think I don't even know if this is true. It was on my news feed. I think Trump has issued maybe a $50 million reward for capture, for the arrest of the president of Venezuela, was it? I mean, just like there's a lot of crazy things happening, right? And there may be clients or even yourselves who would be hesitant to put a client into something today for fear that the values could drop, the index values could drop. But if they do, it's a good thing in the first 90 days because that will reset our starting point and give us the most advantageous opportunity to get growth in that first year. So not only can we potentially have a bonus that's working for us day one, but we could get this added leverage from that best entry window from that lowest starting point. So again, this has really been a very popular product because of these unique features. Here is some things to note. Okay. Our products historically have had 10% free withdrawal provisions. That's something that people have come to associate with us. And while fair, just be aware it's not consistent. Like here is a new product we've introduced. Okay, the free withdrawal provision is built at 5%. So if they don't take a premium enhancement, or if they choose to take the 14% enhancement without the fee, their annual withdrawal provision is still just 5%. Okay, if they chose to take the 20% and pay the 95 basis point annual fee, their withdrawal provision is actually 10%. Okay. If no withdrawals of that 10% are taken, so they paid the fee, there's an added benefit for those that paid the fee with the 20% bonus. If they've not taken any part of that of their withdrawal privilege, the full 10% will roll into year 2 to stack for what would be a maximum withdrawal free withdrawal provision in that next year of 20%. So it's a little added benefit for those that are paying the fee. Now, if they took out any portion of their 10% in a given year, the balance doesn't roll. None of it rolls. So next year, their free withdrawal provision would still be 10. But in the year that they don't touch the 10, the following year is 20. We don't stack beyond the 20, so we'll never get to 30. But it is a unique feature here that you should be aware of. Now, the real conversation is around clients that may be older in age, and that may be dealing with an inherited IRA or a non-qualified stretch beneficiary annuity. I would caution you to maybe consider talking to Glenn or myself as to whether or not this would be the most appropriate product. The reason I say that is because let's say you take the 14% bonus with no fee. There's only a 5% withdrawal privilege. And while these are RMD friendly, so even if the RMD were to exceed 5%, they'll never have a charge. We don't view inherited IRAs and non-qualified stretches as RMDs. So if they were required or wanted to take out some of those required distributions and they exceeded 5%, anything above the 5% would be subject to a charge. So I would just encourage you that if you have an older age client who has a beneficiary annuity, non-qualified stretch or inherited IRA, that you really get with Glenn or myself to have a conversation to see whether or not this is the most appropriate product for that client. It may not be. Okay. The next slide, if the client breaks their contract or takes excessive withdrawals, well, there are charges, right? There is a surrender charge schedule. I mentioned it's a 10-year. It starts at 9% in the majority of states. You got California where it actually only starts at 8.7. California rolls out over 9 years, but all other states will roll out over 10. This product is currently approved in all states except for California. So we filed it. We know how it's going to work when it gets approved, but it's not approved yet in California. It's not approved in Oregon, and it's not approved in New Jersey yet. We did not file it in New York. So just to be clear, this is not filed in New York. Okay. Now, beyond the surrender charge, anytime you have a bonus, these products have what's called a recapture charge. So you've got the market value adjustment. Again, that's in any state except for California when California approves. But if you exceed your free withdrawal provision, whether it be that 5 or that 10%, or perhaps year 2 of that the higher one, and you stack to 20, if you exceed that amount, there could be a premium, or there would be a premium enhancement recapture charge. So you just have to look to see what year you're in, and then anything that's in that excess, there would be a charge associated with that. It would be, it's a fee associated with that premium enhancement excess. So again, this is a product they go into. You just have to be very mindful. You do not want to have a client that doesn't have the liquidity outside for emergency funds. You do not want them going into this product where they get all these added benefits of the premium enhancement, the bonus, the best entry window, and then for some reason they turn around and need to access and withdraw and exceed their free withdrawal provision because they would be subject to these charges. Okay. Like the Strategy Index 7, we do have the waivers, again, confinement, disability, and terminal, that would be available to them. These vary by states as to whether or not all of them are available, but we can help you along the way based on the state the time you have the case. Now here's the rates. So I told you, if you don't take a bonus, we're going to call the product the Smart Start Accumulator. Okay. If you take the bonus, we're going to call it the Smart Start Accumulator Plus. You see that on the screen. I'm going to sit here for a minute so I can go back and compare it to the no bonus or the no premium enhancement. Here is an example of where we see, the conservative declared, if they go into a conservative allocation mix, we know they're going to have the declared rate. That would be at 4%. But the difference is if they want to customize, any customized option is actually going to be lower than the predetermined models. So again, another reason they might want to do the predetermined models over going custom. It's only 3% compared to 4. Here, if they wanted the S&P 500 1-year point-to-point with the cap, it's 5.5% on the custom approach versus what would be the 7% on if they had taken the moderate allocation mix. So just be mindful that there are differences here. Now, I'm going to go back a slide, okay, where we didn't take a bonus, and I'm going to show you here. The declared rate on the conservative is actually 5. Remember, it was 4, right? Toggling back and forth. The custom declared rate was only 3. When you don't take a bonus, it's actually higher. So we know when you take a bonus, we're getting a little bit lower rates, and we're getting lower participation rates. So when I say, why would somebody take buy this product and not take a bonus? Well, because they may believe it's better long term to have the higher participation rates and the higher caps as it relates to, say, even this S&P 500. 11.5% is a really strong S&P 500 point-to-point cap. But to get the 11.5%, you have to buy this product. You have to choose not to take the bonus, right? Now we're getting the Smart Start Accumulator because I didn't take the bonus. And I have to take the moderate allocation mix, right? I'm choosing the moderate mix. And if you'll remember, there was a slide. I'll go back here and show you quickly. There was a slide that showed you the modern mix only has 20% of your total allocation in the S&P 500 point-to-point with the cap. So you can get the 11.5%, but you have to do it in a way where no bonus. I choose the moderate, and then be mindful that the moderate allocation mix is only 20% to that S&P 500 index. Okay, let me go back down to those rate slides. So these are on our rate sheets. These are effective as of August 1st. When they're on the rates sheets, I think it's a little bit easier to see because these two are side by side. In fact, they're on top of one another. So you can kind of see the differences. What have people been buying? Well, they're getting the aggressive model. They're taking the 14% without the fee more times than they're taking either the 20% with the fee or going without the bonus. So why is that? Because from an illustration standpoint, over a 10 or 11-year period, what we're seeing is the 14% with no fee in that aggressive allocation mix is outperforming the other two approaches. And certainly there are a lot of approaches, right? You could do the 14% and do the moderate. You could do, the 20% and do an aggressive, right? Or the moderate, or the conservative. I mean, there's a lot of combinations here. But this product is very unique. It's new to you, so it seems a little bit like there's a lot going on. It really is quite simple, right? There is a premium bonus. You choose one of 3 options. Then you look at a predetermined allocation mix, knowing that we've leveraged Nobel Prize winning approaches. And more likely, you're going to choose conservative, moderate, or aggressive over going the custom approach. And it sounds like most people are choosing aggressive, right? And then you've got these benefits of the 90-day best entry window, right, where we capture in that lowest starting point and reset that as our value. You've got waivers that go with this product. They're quite simple. And you just be aware of how the surrender charges work and whether or not you've got an older client with a beneficiary annuity. And if they don't, then there's probably not a lot to worry about. You just need to manage to the 5% free withdrawal provision or the 10% in a given year. Now, training, there is product training, product specific training. And so when we talk about the Strategy Index 7, that would be course number LAD 10333. You can either do that course training through our portal or through Reg Ed. If you're doing it through Reg Ed, we do have now real time feeds from them. So anytime somebody completes a course, we're being notified, and then that's going directly to our contracting team so they can update your record accordingly. And then the Smart Start Accumulator, new product, new course, and it's the LAD 10385, again, through the portal or through Reg Ed. Now, if you're selling our index products, we are offering an agent bonus for index production this year. It's brand new. We rolled this out this year for the first time. We are paying this on a quarterly basis. So at the end of Q1, we paid these bonuses in April. The Q2 bonuses were just paid in July, and we'll pay the Q3 bonuses in October, and then the Q4 bonuses and the true up, the final true up in January. Now, as you attain tiers, so let's say you happen to go from tier 2, which is 2 million to just under 4, you earn the additional 25 basis points of commission. If you go to tier 3, where it's at 4 million, we will true you up from $1 so that everything you've done now has been paid with that additional 50 basis points. So let's talk about commissions for a minute. Street commissions on the Strategy Index 7, again, it's a 7-year product. Through age 75, we pay 5.25% commission on that Strategy Index 7 product. The Smart Start Accumulator, which again is a 10-year product, 10-year contingent deferred sales charge product, it pays 7.25% through age 75. So again, 5.25 on the Strategy Index 7, and the Smart Start Accumulator will pay 7.25%. And then, again, here, depending upon the amount of volume that you do between now and perhaps the end of the year, it's all additive. You would be able to perhaps earn an additional 25 basis points. And if you come across some of those large cases, I mean, you could do incredibly well and get another 1.5%, 150 bips. That's a bonus paid to you.
And Tim, also on top of that, we have our advocate sprint for the Avicon. So anybody that's writing business on fixed index also has a potential bonus from us as well, up to $3,000. So we want you to hit these numbers, and we want to pay you more. So you can stack these. This is not one or the other. It is both.
Yeah, and I've been traveling the last 3 weeks, and so I apologize. But there was also a email that came out. And I'd be scrambling to find it, but I feel as though with your first Smart Start Accumulator app, if it's done electronically, we'll give you an additional $500. And I think the minimum premium amount would be $25,000. So I think if you do with your first app, if it's $25,000 or more, it's an additional $500 to you. But again, Glenn, I'll have to get you those details that you can share with the team. I've been on the road. It was a quick read. I don't want to misrepresent the details. I think those are the details, but I don't want to misrepresent them. So
I'll send that out. Thank you. Yeah, because that's tremendous. The commissions are great, and on that flex that Tim mentioned on the 5% plus, you get 5% the first year. If they continue to contribute, you're also getting 3% the second, third, and fourth year. And then it drops to 1. I mean, all 7 years you're getting a commission, which is very unique as well. So just make sure you're utilizing the top commissions that Advocate offers, and American National is a big part of that.
Yeah, so agents can earn a $500 bonus when submitting a paid Smart Start Accumulator series policy with a minimum of $25,000 in paid production. To qualify, the policies must be submitted electronically between July 15th and October 31st. But I'll get those details to you, Glenn. But that's the only thing I didn't mention was the time frame, July 15th, which we're in, through the end of October. But with that, I know we're really at the top of the hour, and it's a long hour. I apologize, but I do know it's an investment. I truly believe that. But for questions, we do have our sales desk. It's 888-501-4043. My number, I didn't have a slide in here on me, but my cell number is 260. So it's the Fort Wayne area code, 260-341-9689. Again, 341-9689. I'm Tim Burns with American National. Glenn will have my contact information as well. Certainly more than happy to help. I do have an internal partner. So as I travel, her name is Devin. her name is Devin. So just be aware. But I can get Glenn her contact information as well. So as I may be on the road and traveling, Devin certainly would be a great backup as well. There are disclosures and such. The love notes from compliance. But yeah, I'll do a stop share here and I'll come back to the full view. But yeah, appreciate everybody's time. Are there questions? I know we just got a few minutes.
Yeah, it's a lot of information, but we wanted to feature these two products because they've been so red hot. And I really think everybody should find a client in their Medicare book or in their friends and family that they can offer this to. That makes a lot of sense. But I do want to leave it open for questions. I want to remind everybody Wednesday we have our silver level financial security navigator, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We want you to be part of. If you haven't registered, please do. And with that, I'll leave it open for some questions here real quick.
Well, keep in mind, that refinancing your retirement, that's kind of maybe how you approach it with your clients, where we're at with interest rates, and then overcoming any concerns of fees and charges with the bonuses or the premium enhancements. Did someone start to ask a question?
All right. Thanks, everybody, so much. Have a great weekend.